My dad funded my golden brother's college and forced me to drop out. Now I refuse to save him from cancer debt and tell him to figure it out all over again. I'm 29, male, married to Brooke, 29, female, for 3 years. We've got a 6-month-old son who already looks like he inherited my stubborn streak. Life's good, real good. I haven't spoken to my family since I was 19. Right after my dad wrote a check for my brother Joshua's entire college tuition while telling me to figure out my own situation. Not a dime for me, nothing. But Joshua? 4 years paid in full, room and board included, courtesy of dear old dad. Here's the thing that made it worse. Joshua didn't even ask for the money. My dad volunteered it, showed up at dinner one night and announced he'd be covering everything. Meanwhile, I had a 3.8 GPA acceptance letters to 3 state schools and got told to apply for scholarships because there was no college fund for me. My real mother died when I was 15. Open heart surgery that went wrong. One day she was fine, the next day she was in the hospital. 3 days later, she was gone. My dad was a mess for about 6 months. Then he met Samantha. She was 10 years younger than him, looked like she stepped out of a catalog, and talked a good game about wanting to be part of our family. They got married less than a year after my mom died. I was 16. Joshua was born when I was 17. And just like that, I went from being the center of my dad's world to the kid who reminded him of his dead wife, the outsider in my own house. My dad worked as a regional sales director for a manufacturing equipment company. Made solid money, good enough that Samantha never had to work once Joshua was born. She stayed home, focused entirely on raising her son while I basically raised myself. Growing up, it was obvious who mattered in that house. Joshua got new toys, new clothes, new everything. I got hand-me-downs and was told to be grateful. Joshua got help with homework and bedtime stories. I got told to figure it out myself because Samantha was busy with the baby. When Joshua started school, suddenly my dad was parent of the year, never missed one of his soccer games, couldn't remember the last time he showed up to anything of mine. In high school, Joshua and I had similar grades. He struggled with math and science, bombed a few tests junior year. By senior year, I was ahead academically. I felt good about it, thinking maybe all that work finally meant something. Then my dad sat me down 3 months before graduation and dropped the news. He wasn't paying for my college. I needed to find scholarships, take out loans, whatever. But he'd already decided to cover Joshua's tuition when he graduated in 2 years because Joshua wanted to study literature and pursue something intellectual. Because apparently working with your hands wasn't as valuable as reading books and writing essays. I argued with him for 2 weeks straight. He kept saying I needed to understand that Joshua had opportunities I didn't have, that Joshua was going to do something meaningful with his education, that I should be happy for my brother instead of being jealous. When I pointed out that I was his firstborn son and deserved the same support, he completely lost it, told me if that was how I felt, maybe I should pack my stuff and learn what the real world was like. So I did. Grabbed everything I owned, moved in with 2 buddies from high school who were renting a house off campus. My dad called a few times those first weeks, never to apologize or reconsider, just wanted me to come home and accept his decision like a good son should. I ignored every call. I tried getting loans. Nobody would co-sign. I had no credit, no assets, no adult backing me up. I enrolled anyway, thinking I'd figure it out. Lasted 6 days before reality hit. Couldn't pay for books, couldn't afford the meal plan. My roommates were fronting me money I couldn't pay back. I withdrew from classes, got a refund on the tuition I'd barely scraped together, and started looking for full-time work. That was my lowest point. 19 years old, basically homeless, working a garbage job at a fabrication shop that paid just enough to cover rent and instant noodles. My roommates made it clear they'd replace me the second I missed rent. Joshua was off planning his college future on my dad's dime, while I was pulling overtime shifts and wondering if I'd ever catch a break. The fabrication shop was brutal. Started as a general laborer, cleaning up scrap metal and hauling materials. Minimum wage, no benefits, the kind of place where you're just a number. But I showed up every single day, worked every shift they'd give me, took on extra hours whenever someone called in sick. I had to miss one rent check and I'd be sleeping in my car. After about 6 months, my mom's brother reached out. My uncle had been a welder for 30 years. He'd heard I was working at a fabrication shop and asked if I wanted to learn. I said yes, immediately. He started teaching me during lunch breaks and after shifts, basic stuff at first. How to strike an arc, how to run a bead, how to read prints. I practiced obsessively, burned through gloves and rods on scrap metal. After hours, my uncle kept pushing me, showing me new techniques. After 8 months, he convinced the shop supervisor to let me test for an apprentice position. I passed, Got moved to the welding bay with a small pay bump and actual on-the-job training. That's when things started turning around. I was good at welding, really good. Something about it just clicked. The precision, the heat control, the way you could see exactly what you'd built. I started getting my certifications: stick welding, MIG, TIG, pipe welding. Each one meant better pay and more responsibility. 2 years in, I was running production welds and training new apprentices. Moved out of the roommate situation into a tiny apartment that cost too much but was mine. No degree, no help, just refusing to quit. That's when I met Brooke. She was doing medical device sales for a company that sourced parts from our shop. We started chatting during her visits, and she didn't care that I dropped out. She cared that I showed up, did the work, and didn't make excuses. We started dating 5 years ago, got married 3 years ago. Best decision I ever made. I kept moving up. Apprentice welder to journeyman to lead welder to welding supervisor to operations manager. By 27, I was making more than most of my friends with degrees. Not rich, but comfortable. Bought a house with Brooke in a decent suburb, 4 bedrooms, 2-car garage, the whole setup. I'd hear about Joshua sometimes through mutual acquaintances. He graduated with his literature degree, struggled to find work in his field, ended up taking random jobs that had nothing to do with his education, doing fine supposedly. But when people mentioned seeing his apartment or his car, it never sounded impressive. One acquaintance straight up told me Joshua was still driving a beater and living in a studio with a roommate. The guy who got handed everything was barely scraping by. Maybe the universe had some sense of justice after all. Over the years, my dad kept trying to reach out. Birthday texts, Merry Christmas, Happy Thanksgiving, generic holiday messages like we were casual acquaintances instead of father and son. I never responded, but I never blocked him either. Part of me was waiting for an apology. Just one. I was wrong. It never came. He'd send these messages acting like nothing happened. Like he didn't choose Joshua over me. Like he didn't force me to drop out and start over from nothing. The weird part? He never called. Always texts. Like actually talking to me would require acknowledging what he did, but impersonal messages were safe. Meanwhile, I heard through the grapevine that Samantha loved bragging about Joshua's education, how he was studying literature, how cultured and intellectual he was, how my dad was so proud to have a son pursuing higher thinking instead of just manual labor. Never mind that her intellectual son couldn't find a job and I was running an entire welding operation. When our son was born 6 months ago, everything shifted for Brooke and me. We were exhausted and terrified but happier than we'd ever been. We posted some photos on social media because we wanted our friends to see him. Didn't think those photos would cause so much trouble. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost sent it to voicemail, but something made me answer. It was my dad. First time I'd heard his voice in 10 years. He sounded older, tired. For maybe 5 seconds, I thought this might be it, that seeing his grandson's photos had finally made him realize what he'd lost, that he was finally going to apologize. He started with the usual guilt trip, how hurt he was that I got married without inviting him, how sad he was that he had a grandson he'd never met. But his voice was flat, rehearsed. Then he got to the real reason for the call. He needed money. Said it plain as day. Joshua was planning to get married soon, had a fiancée now, and was working on writing his big literary masterpiece that was supposedly going to launch his career. Except writing books doesn't pay bills. My dad said he was stretched thin helping Joshua with the wedding planning, living expenses, all of it. He needed me to contribute. Said I had a good job now, a nice house, that I was doing well and should help out. Then he said the words that made my blood boil, that I owed him this money. Owed him. After everything. After forcing me to drop out, after watching me struggle for years while Joshua got everything handed to him, after 10 years of silence, he thought I owed him money to fund Joshua's lifestyle. I said, "You actually think I owe you money after what you did to me?" "I raised you," he shot back. "Put a roof over your head, fed you, clothed you. I didn't have to keep you after your mother died, but I did. That's worth something." "That's called being a parent," I replied. "You don't get a refund for doing the bare minimum." "Family helps family," he said, voice getting sharper. "Joshua is getting married. He's writing a book, pursuing something meaningful with his life. But how would you understand that? You've always been bitter and selfish, just like your mother. Don't you dare talk about her like that. She filled your head with nonsense, made you entitled. If she'd lived, you'd probably be even worse off than you are now. You replaced her before she was even cold in the ground. Married Samantha and forgot mom ever existed. I moved on like adults do. Now I'm telling you, send Joshua the money. Don't embarrass me." No, that's my answer. No, Joshua is counting on this. I already told him you'd help. Don't make me look like a fool to my son. Then you shouldn't have lied. And I remember what you told me when I was 19 and counting on you. Figure it out yourself, so Joshua can do the same. His voice turned vicious. You're making a mistake. When you need help someday, and you will, don't come crying to me. You're throwing away your only family over pocket change. Pathetic. You threw me away first. Mom would be ashamed of you. I hung up. Brooke was next to me, saw my hands shaking, asked what happened. I told her everything. She looked furious, said she couldn't believe he had the audacity to insult my mother and demand money in the same breath, and that she was proud of me for defending Mom's memory and shutting him down. I thought that would end it. Should have known better. 2 weeks later, they showed up at my house. I was out front working on the lawn when a car pulled into my driveway. My dad got out first, then Joshua. Hadn't seen Joshua in 10 years. He looked exactly like I expected. Soft hands, designer clothes, the kind of guy who'd never broken a sweat doing real work. They didn't knock, just walked straight up like they owned the place. My dad's face was set in that expression I remembered from childhood, the one that said he'd already decided how this would go and my opinion didn't matter. We need to talk about your refusal to help your brother, he said. No greeting, straight into it. I straightened up from the mower. You need to leave, I said, keeping my voice level. They ignored me. You have a responsibility to help Joshua get started in life. You're being selfish and stubborn. Joshua just stood there smug, arms crossed, nodding along like my dad was delivering profound truth instead of demanding my money. What has Joshua ever contributed that makes him deserve anything from me? Joshua laughed. Family doesn't keep score. Blood means you show up when someone needs you. Easy words from someone who'd never shown up for anyone. My dad stepped closer. I raised you, put food on your table, gave you a roof. You owe me for 18 years of my life. You chose to raise Joshua with my money, paid his entire tuition while I dropped out. That was your choice. Now you live with it. My dad's expression got colder. You're just a welder, he said, like it was an insult. Joshua is pursuing meaningful work, real intellectual pursuits, not just working in a shop. You should be grateful for the opportunity to contribute to something important. Joshua added, helping fund my writing career is probably the most meaningful thing you will ever do with your money, since your life is just punching a clock at a factory. I just stared at them. 10 years of silence, and this is how they show up? Brooke came outside, stood next to me. Joshua looked at her, gave her a slow, dismissive once-over. This is family business. Maybe you should head back inside while the adults talk. If you're standing on our property, it's my business too. The car door opened. Samantha got out and walked over, already talking. Brooke, you need to understand we're trying to keep this family together. He's causing problems by being unreasonable. A good wife would encourage her husband to support his family when they need help. Brooke raised an eyebrow. You clearly don't understand how real families work. You're probably the reason he's being difficult, Samantha continued. Young wives often manipulate their husbands into cutting off their blood because they're insecure. Maybe Brooke comes from a different kind of family, my dad added. One that doesn't value loyalty. Joshua smirked, looking at our house. Must be nice living somewhere you probably can't afford. Welders don't make real money. He's always had a problem living beyond his means. Then Samantha said something that made my blood go cold. Your mother would be disappointed in how you turned out. She always worried you'd grow up selfish. She'd be ashamed watching you abandon your family over something as petty as money. Don't you dare talk about her, I said, voice flat, dead serious. Your mother would have wanted you to help Joshua, to be a good older brother, to put family first instead of holding grudges. Your mother raised you better than this, my dad added. He knew exactly what he was doing, using my dead mother as a weapon. I'd heard enough. You have 10 seconds to get off my property, or I'm calling the cops. My dad laughed. You won't do that. You would embarrass yourself having the police show up over a family conversation. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone, started dialing. His expression changed fast, amused to angry in half a second. You're making a huge mistake. You'll regret this when you need family someday and nobody's there. I held up the phone so they could see the screen. The dispatcher can explain trespassing laws if you want to stick around. They finally backed toward their car, still talking. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, Joshua shouted. You'll come crawling back. Eventually, you're exactly like your mother, my dad said. Difficult, stubborn, impossible to deal with. They got in the car, sat there staring. Then my dad rolled down the window. Everything you have is because of me. You'd be nothing without me. Then they drove away. Brooke and I stood there in silence for a minute, then she said, "I can't believe they actually showed up like that. They're even worse than you described." We went inside. I was furious, but Brooke kept making jokes about Samantha's tactics, Joshua's smug face, my dad's delusion. By the time we sat down, I was laughing too. Thought that would be the end of it. They'd tried intimidation and failed completely. 1 month later, I got an email from my dad. Subject line, "You need to know the truth." I almost deleted it unread, but Brooke said I should at least open it. I did. Read it twice because I couldn't process what I was seeing. Joshua wasn't his biological son. Samantha had an affair. The email was long and detailed. Dad explained how he'd started noticing things. Joshua didn't look like him, different build, different features. He'd always ignored it. Then he found old emails on Samantha's laptop, bought a paternity test kit, took DNA samples without anyone knowing. Results, 0% match. He confronted Samantha. She broke down, admitted the affair happened during their first year of marriage, some guy from her gym. She got pregnant, convinced Dad the baby was his. The guy moved away, never knew. She kept the secret for 27 years. Dad filed for divorce the same day, told her to pack her things and get out. She moved out within a week. He got the house, most of the assets. Joshua found out when Samantha told him and stopped speaking to both of them. The email ended with Dad saying he finally understood that he'd spent 27 years raising another man's son while pushing away his actual biological child, that he was sorry, that if he could take it back, he would. Finding out Joshua wasn't his didn't change anything for me. My childhood still happened. I still got pushed aside. Knowing the reason didn't erase the damage, but it did give me clarity. I wasn't less valuable. The whole family dynamic was built on Samantha's massive lie, and now it was all falling apart. I didn't respond. 2 months ago, Dad sent another email. "I need to talk to you. It's urgent." I opened it. He'd been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, terminal, maybe 6 months to a year with aggressive treatment, maybe 3 months without. Insurance wouldn't cover everything. He was looking at 6 figures in medical bills and was completely broke after the divorce. He'd reached out to Joshua first. Joshua told him to get lost, said he had no responsibility towards someone who wasn't his real father, wanted nothing to do with him. Dad was alone, no wife, no son who'd speak to him, facing death with no money for treatment. The email included all the apologies I'd waited 10 years to hear. He regretted everything. Then he asked, not demanded, asked, if I could help with medical expenses, just enough to start treatment, enough to buy some time. Said he understood if I said no, that he didn't deserve my help, but he was desperate. Brooke read it. "He's dying," she said. "That's horrible. But even now he's asking you for money." A terminal diagnosis didn't erase my childhood or the 10 years of silence. The next day, Joshua texted a long message about how his life was falling apart, that he just needed enough for first month's rent somewhere cheap. I blocked his number immediately. We're not brothers. We never were. 2 days later, Samantha emailed begging me to convince Dad to take her back, saying he was dying and shouldn't die alone. I told her she had some nerve, that she destroyed my childhood with her lies, and to lose my email address. I thought about helping Dad constantly. Part of me knew what he did was unforgivable. Part of me wondered if letting him die alone made me just as cold as he was. Last week his condition got worse. Doctors are now saying maybe 2 months, maybe less. Joshua reached out again, this time about Dad, saying nobody deserves to die in pain because they can't afford treatment, then immediately went back to "he's not my real father." Samantha sent another desperate email using my mom's memory as leverage. I deleted it. I'm conflicted. I could pay for treatment that might buy him a few more months, maybe a year. I can afford it. It would hurt, but it wouldn't destroy us. So Reddit, what do you think? Should I pay for my dad's medical bills, even after everything he did to me? Does him being sick and possibly dying change anything? Or is this just another crisis where I'm expected to fix problems he created? Am I the jerk if I let him face this alone when I could help? Or do I owe him nothing, the same way he gave me nothing when I was 19 and desperate? I need to decide soon. Treatment needs to start now if it's going to do anything. I still catch myself doing the math in my head at night. How much the experimental treatment would cost, how many months it might buy him, how many shifts I'd have to pick up to cover it without touching the college fund we started for our son. It's insane that I even know the exact numbers. It's more insane that part of me is willing to bleed for a man who watched me starve and never once asked if I was okay. I keep thinking about the last time I saw my mom alive. She squeezed my hand in that hospital bed and whispered, "Take care of your dad for me." I was 15. I thought that meant making sure he ate dinner when he forgot, or leaving the porch light on when he worked late. I never imagined it would one day mean deciding whether he lives or dies in agony, because he spent every dollar of love he had on a kid who wasn't even his, while telling me I wasn't worth the investment. Some nights I get so furious I want to scream into the dark that he doesn't deserve a single dime, that he forfeited the right to my mercy the day he chose Joshua's dorm fridge over my textbooks. Other nights, I'm 8 years old again, hiding behind the couch while he cried over Mom's sweater, and all I want is to walk into whatever hospital room he's in, sit down, and let him hold my hand the way I couldn't hold hers when she slipped away. I want him to look at me, really look, and see the man he threw away is the only person left who shares his blood, his real blood. I want him to say my name like it matters. Just once. I'm terrified I'll pay and he'll die anyway, and I'll hate myself for being stupid enough to hope. I'm terrified I won't pay and he'll die anyway, and I'll hate myself for becoming the cold, transactional person he accused me of being. Brooke watches me like she's afraid I'll disappear into this decision and never come back. She keeps saying, "You are not the one who broke this family. You don't have to fix it with your bank account or your guilt." But when our son reaches for me with those tiny hands, I feel the weight of every generation pressing down. My mom's hope, my dad's failure, my own fear that I'll somehow pass damage forward even though I'm trying so damn hard not to. I built a life that proves I never needed him. So why does the thought of his last breath happening without me in the room feel like losing something I can't name? I'm proud. I'm shattered. I'm 30 years old and still the kid begging for a scrap of approval from a father who's running out of time to give it. I don't know how to forgive without feeling like I'm betraying the 19-year-old who slept in his car so he wouldn't drown. I don't know how to walk away without feeling like I'm killing the only parent I have left. I just want one decision in this whole mess that doesn't leave another scar. I'm not sure that decision exists.